There we go. Alright. I think I'm a couple minutes early, but that's okay. I'm starting tonight's live stream for Then It Was Dark. Then It Was Dark, as you probably already know if you're here seeing this live stream, is a collection of personal paranormal experiences, true ghost stories, friend of a friend tales, and brushes with the unknown. And tonight on this live stream, I'll be talking about the anthology, talking about spooky things, answering questions, and just drawing sketches of whatever you like. So I'm going to just check to make sure this is on YouTube, as it should be. Yes, it is. And I'm going to just pop that link on Then It Was Dark's Facebook page. You get to watch me do this because I can't just do a screen share on Photoshop because of something I don't even really know what. Something in Photoshop's display, I have to share the entire screen with you, so you get to see everything. Wonderful. And boom! Look at that! We are so close to our goal. Just got $785. And we will be fully funded, and I think that we can get there tonight. That's my hope, anyway. So, I'll be on the space for the live stream, because... Oh, shut up, me. I'll be on the space for the live stream so that I can see anyone's comments, or questions, or suggestions for sketches, or what have you. And since no one's here yet, I'll just talk to myself and doodle something. Let's see here. What shall I doodle? Doodly 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 do. Well, oop. Last time there were a couple of suggestions related to nightmares, so let's see if I can remember something from a nightmare I've had. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have nearly enough, like, good, scary nightmares. Too many of my nightmares are just, you know, I'm late for a class that I haven't taken in years, or, you know, my teeth are falling out, or I'm in a car that I can't control. That's a pretty common one for me, actually. You know, those ones aren't interesting. Everyone has those nightmares. I want nightmares with monsters in them. I have had some, you know, good creepy nightmares, mind you. But there just seems to be a really unpleasant, disproportionate number. For every nightmare I have with a cool, spooky monster in it, I've got like 7 late for class nightmares and, you know, 20 can't drive a car nightmares, and not as much fun. Not fun at all, actually. Awful. I mean, I guess the scary nightmares are awful while you're having them, too. But, I don't know. There's a certain satisfaction with those. As usual, I honestly have no idea what I'm drawing right now. I'm just kind of making it up as I go. I'm just going to periodically check back, because if anyone has comments or questions or whatever, I want to hear about them and I want to respond to them. Yes. I, 'cause, 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 ' the hell am I drawing? So, if you've been following the project, you'll know we are very, very close right now. There have been a couple people who have given just a really surprisingly generous amount. They're going to get some really special extras for that. And there's just been a lot of people who've, we've gotten a ton just from straight book orders. And it's all adding up to us, hopefully, knock wood, being funded tonight. I was knocking on my head when I said that. Do you guys do that? If there's nothing wood to knock on? Nah. I need to knock wood if I say that. I take that shit seriously, man. It's got an udder, doesn't it? I'm drawing something with an udder, that's for sure. The top of its head kind of looks like some kind of bull, maybe. So I guess we've got ourselves some kind of cow monster. Let's go with that. You. See, I can't play music because, well, of complicated reasons. One is I'm actually doing this on a laptop. I don't have a desktop computer. And something to do with, I don't really have a proper sound card because it's a laptop, and there's just some thing going on with certain kinds of laptops. You just can't play sound straight off your computer. It's almost certainly got something to do with protecting copyrights and the RIAA, and you don't want people to play music during their whatever. Anyway, point is I can't play music, so I'm gonna have to talk to myself to fill the silence. And I am kind of tired of this cow monster now, so I'm gonna call it done. Alright, what should I draw next? If this ends up just being me talking to myself and doodling monsters, that's just fine. But so, if it's just that, I may not do another one anytime soon, just because that tells me there's probably not too many people interested in this. But let's see. What kind of monster next? I drew a cow monster, let's draw a pig monster. Pigs. Pigs, 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 pigs. Pigs. So speaking of pigs, is anyone who is watching this either now or later also watching a little TV show called Hannibal? I'm not going to say anything too detailed about it. I think I probably mentioned it in the last live stream too. I'm sorry, I'm way too fascinated with that show. I'm not going to say anything too detailed because A, I have no idea how much gore anyone watching this can handle, and B, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's not caught up. But I absolutely love that show. It's it's very intense and it's very gory, but some recent episodes, despite being pretty intense in the gore factor, have kind of impressed me in terms of that show knows when to not use gore. You know, it knows when to kind of dial it back and show you something peaceful or something beautiful or just something that isn't horrifying. You know, you really have to pace yourself with gore. I think everyone who watches a lot of horror movies knows that some people do not know how to pace themselves when it comes to gore. There's just, you know, the thought for some people, I guess, is just the more horrifying you can get, the more scary it'll be, and that's really not true. If you just pile on tons and tons of gore, you will probably disgust a lot of people. You know, at best, it's just gross out, and at worst, it's, you know, kind of silly and even boring. So, I'm gonna put this over here, and put this over there. Boop. And I'm gonna let you guys watch me draw a pig monster. Oh, that is way too cute an ear for a pig monster. Oh well. Pigs can, well, pigs can be really, really cute. They can also be kind of terrifying. Again, I refer you to Hannibal. I wonder, I think even more than wolves, pigs are an animal that appears very frequently in horror. Usually as some kind of stand-in for human beings. Probably not the most commonly appearing one. The most commonly appearing animal is probably dogs, just because, you know, they're a common enough pet that coexists with humans. No, that doesn't look right. I should probably just Google image search a pig, but I feel like it's going to be grosser if I don't. Yeah, I'll Google image search a pig. Aww. Those are halfway between cute and grotesque. But you see pigs a lot in horror, you see dogs a lot in horror. I think I see both of those more often than I see cats in horror, despite, you know, having a lot of folkloric connotations. You know, cats certainly. I mean, you do see like the cliche cat scare in horror movies, but even that generally doesn't involve an actual cat. I think I think people are wise to the fact that if they actually show a cat in a cat scare, they're not going to be taken seriously. Yeah. Well, I think I think that when it comes to animals in horror, pigs are pretty good just because, A, they're very intelligent animals. There's something slightly humanoid about the way they look just because they're all pink and hairless and fleshy like we are. Um, and, they're animals that are bred for food, so it's very easy to bring in the horror of industrialized farming, you know. Um, because regardless of whether you're someone who particularly cares about cruelty to animals or doesn't, there's something pretty horrifying about modern industrialized farming that I think we all kind of agree on that. Regardless of whether we actually care too much in terms of how we alter our lifestyles, there's just something pretty messed up about that. So you've got these somewhat intelligent, somewhat disturbingly humanoid animals that are living in kind of horrifying conditions. Often living in horrifying conditions. There are plenty of people who raise pigs who do so very humanely, and it's wonderful. I'm just saying, in the context of a horror story, they're probably going to focus on the more negative possibility. Then, of course, you got the cannibalism angle, because there's that sort of, I don't know if it's a myth or not, it's something people say a lot, which is that human flesh tastes closer to pork than to any other meat. I cannot confirm or deny that. I have no direct experience on that. So. If anyone has anything they'd like me to sketch, or anything they'd like me to talk about, or any questions about the anthology, feel free to chime in on the comments. Okay, I am actually putting udders on everything now, which is probably a sign that I'm running out of ideas for this pig thing. Blech. I don't care for that at all. I'm gonna draw something else. Because at this point I can draw whatever I want. At least until anyone tells me otherwise. I'm actually going to take a minute to show you some other person's drawing. This was just sent to me by Kazia Banas. She is one of the artists for Then It Was Dark, and she's doing a collaboration with Tara Zuber. And I absolutely love her art, by the way. I love Tara Zuber's story, but I love Kazia Banas' art. She kind of reminds me of those Stephen Gamble illustrations from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And those illustrations for me were kind of hugely influential in my wanting to make art, because they were the first images I think I ever saw that kind of convinced me of the power of illustrations. Just the fact that those images were able to carry so much fear despite being this sort of fictional, artificial creation. And I loved Scary Stories at that point, but the stories in that book did not even come close to having the power those images did. And that just really, really impressed me and left a huge impression on me as a kid, so. And then, of course, they had to change them. Because we just can't have nice things. And, it's kind of a shame, too, because I don't remember the name of the illustrator who took over. And it's not, his illustrations aren't bad. I've seen him, I've seen his work on other things. He drew art for the Series of Unfortunate Events books and some other stuff, and he's got a very nice style, but it's not the same, you know. He was stepping into way too big shoes, and he was probably I would suspect he was told not to make them too scary. I mean, I don't know that, but I would not be surprised given that the reason he was brought on was to make them less scary. And, you know, I think his style is just not as creepy and icky as Stephen Gammell's. It's much sweeter and nicer. So, I think he got a lot of unfair flack for just taking that job, really. You know, it's not like his art is bad, it's just not the same. What the heck am I drawing now? Alright. But I think a lot of artists and illustrators whose tastes run in some area that is either spooky or something like that, you know, have fond memories of those illustrations. I certainly know that a lot of people in general, just who grew up around that time, or they were old enough that they might have seen them. I've certainly heard a lot of people say they remember those fondly and have very vivid memories of how much they scared them. When I'm drawing on my own, I tend to make a lot of really obnoxious sounds to myself, and I'm trying very hard to suppress that urge. right. It's becoming abundantly clear that I need to give myself a thing to draw, or else I'm just going to doodle ridiculous things. So let's see. I'll draw... Oh, I guess I'll draw some kind of monster made of bones. Because if there's one thing I can always draw, it is probably always draw skeletons. Or skeleton creatures. It's just one of my go-to things if I'm just doodling. Oop. But who doesn't love skeletons at least a little, right? I mean, just aesthetically speaking, they're pretty beautiful things. Plus, they keep you from dissolving into a puddle of guts and flesh. And we all like that, don't we? I can say, I'm gonna make a stand right here, right now, and say I am pro not dissolving into a puddle of guts and flesh, and I don't care how many people I offend with that statement. Because you know what? You know what? Guts and flesh, not enough. Gotta have some bones. Gotta have some bones. That's Sarah Benkin, 2014. You can quote me on that. So I'm gonna pause and take a peek, see if anything's changed on the Kickstarter. Boop. Come on. Whoa! The video just started really loud in my ears. And I think that's the same as it was before, and that is a-okay, because, you know what? You guys have been sending in so many pledges, have been backing at so many different levels, and we've been doing just so great these last couple of days. I feel absolutely excited about where this is going. So if I just sit here and doodle and... Well, I'm not completely talking to myself, I think. There have been one or two of you. Yeah, there's two of you. That's enough. I'm doing this just for you two, man. Screw anyone else! Well, maybe not screw anyone else, but just you guys, whoever you two are the most awesome two people in the whole of YouTube. So, you can tell people that. Tell people that you're the two most awesome people on YouTube, and it is legally binding. Yep. Everything I say is legally binding, in fact. Including that. It's not a very accurate pelvis, it's really more of a butterfly right now, but that's okay. These are some pretty stylized bones all around. Now what should he have for feet? Actual feet? Hands? No, I think the most obvious answer is 2 more skulls. Guess he's standing kind of contrapposto-ish. Not really. Not even close. I mean, he doesn't have any arms, so a little hard to do contrapposto then. Should probably give him arms. But if this ends up just me talking to 2 people and doing doodles for them, that is just fine. I am A-okay with that. I'm saying it over and over again because I don't have a lot of other things to say, but so okay. I'll think of something else to talk about. Well, I should talk about Then It Was Dark, shouldn't I? You know, I said most of what I wanted to say about the project in general on my last live stream. You know, there's only so many times I can talk about how much I like it before I start sounding kind of like, before I start feeling like I'm just trying to sell it to you. But I really I'm really enjoying where this project is going. I've seen some of the art that's already been done for it. You've seen some of it too if you've been following things. And I really like where it's going. I like the artists involved. I like the writers involved. And I like stories like this. Basically, not much has changed regarding Then It Was Dark since 2 days ago, which was when my last live stream was. I think he is juggling segments of spine. Either that or very large misshapen pieces of taffy. Oh, there's a new one. Hello, third person. If you want to suggest something for me to sketch, just leave a comment telling me what it is, and I shall sketch it for ye. Let's give this guy some flowers. Because you know what? Skeletons deserve flowers too. Anyone who says skeletons don't deserve flowers, they're just wrong, man. They're just haters. And I hate haters. I hate people who hate things. But I do like skeletons. so I give them flowers. Or scribbles that maybe vaguely resemble flowers. These are some of the laziest flowers I've ever drawn. Maybe I don't like skeletons that much if this is the best I can do flower-wise for them. Maybe my whole life I've secretly hated skeletons. Oh, that reminds me. I don't know if anyone here has seen a movie called The Last Skeleton of Cadavra, but if you have not, run, don't walk to the internet and look it up and then probably buy it and watch it because it is hilarious. It's kind of a parody of... See, if I say B-movie right now, you might be thinking of something a little more modern, like, maybe something from like the 80s even. But when I say it's a parody of B-movie, I'm thinking like, maybe 1950s, maybe early 60s, but more likely earlier than that. Kind of just sci-fi monster movies. It's hard to really describe, but it's very, very funny. It's played with very much a straight face, but the actors are saying and doing the most ridiculous things. I like it a lot. Let's see. I've done a cow monster, sort of a pig monster, a bone monster. Maybe next I should... Well, okay. Those were some really crappy flowers I drew. So I guess I'll redeem myself by drawing a flower monster. Again, if anyone has anything they'd like me to talk about, any questions, anything they'd like me to draw, feel free to put something in the comments. I'm going to actually refresh, because it occurs to me last time, sometimes I didn't see comments. They're supposed to update automatically, but sometimes they don't. If you guys have been, desperately leaving comments while I've been telling you to, you totally have been. Wow. Hi! You are so right, Ian Thompson. I do need to actively refresh my browser to see your comments. I am so silly for not really seeing that. Alright. Well, I guess I'll start with you. I'm friends with a guy who ran into BEKs. Any of the entrants in the book run into something like that? Human figures that creep you out on closer inspections? Oh, Black-Eyed Kids. Yeah, I remember that one. Well, let's see. There's no Slender Man in the book, but there are definitely a couple. There are a few stories that kind of run into that largely humanoid figure, but something's a little off kind of thing. There's one in particular by Henry Gustafsson that I think that you might like. That one's going in a fairly interesting direction. I don't want to give too much away, but Uh, there's definitely a few weird humanoids here. All right. Now, Tim Harrison, did you approach the artist with more of an open call for submissions? Did you pick out someone with specific sorrows, swamps of anything, common appearance in horror? I love my skeleton. It's always been very supportive. Yes, yes. My skeleton's been very supportive of me, too. All right. Well, the way I got the artist for this book, there were a couple that I did approach, mostly people I knew, a couple who I didn't. Because I already knew a few artists whose work I liked and who I would have liked to have in an anthology. And then there were a couple of strangers I approached just in the hopes they'd be interested. So after that, I put out an open call on Tumblr, and I honestly thought, I'd get maybe 10 or 20 responses, and of that, maybe 3 or 4 would be good enough that I would actually want them in the anthology. And I was absolutely shocked how many I got, and how many of them were really, really good. And, it turned out that most of the people in this book are people I have not worked with that I found through that open call. So actually, if anyone is thinking of making any kind of anthology, I strongly recommend putting out an open call on Tumblr. Tumblr has a mixed reputation, let's say, and there are some good things and some bad things about it, but it has a whole ton of artists, and a lot of them are probably artists you would not otherwise run into. A lot of them are artists who are kind of looking for work and so might be interested in doing a paid anthology. And, if you put out an open call, how much effort does it really take to set up a Google Doc and put out an open call? For a fairly minimal amount of initial effort, and then a little more when you actually get the responses and have to sort through them, you're going to be introduced to a whole lot of artists that you probably didn't even know about before. Maybe some you did know about but wouldn't have thought they'd be interested in working with you. And you'll just get some really, I certainly got some really good responses, I would strongly recommend it to anyone who's thinking of doing an anthology on any topic at all. So let's see. Did I pick out people with specific styles? Yes and no. Certainly I was thinking about a particular kind of maybe group of styles, because there's actually quite a few different types of artwork in here. I already showed you Kazuya Bana's, who has a very distinctive look. Then there's some people who have a more cartoony look. There's a couple who have a sort of, manga-inspired kind of thing. But there was a certain, but at the same time, there was a certain degree of curating I did with style, because, I didn't want anything that was too cute. There are some people who have kind of cartoony styles that can be cute, but all of those people, I've seen them do things that are creepier and kind of grittier. So there are some artists who did some very lovely kind of mainstream Marvel DC Image kind of stuff. I guess Image is its own thing, really, but it's kind of anyway. Who had some kind of mainstream sort of art that was very, very lovely. I mean, it wasn't bad, it was good, but it just wasn't what I was looking for, because it was kind of straightforward. They were just demonstrating they could draw good mainstream anatomy and buildings and backgrounds and stuff, and it wasn't creepy. So there's a variety of styles, but they all have something about them that is kind of creepy or grim or gritty, or in the case of the more cartoony ones, at least in some of those cases, more able to create this sense of an almost ironic cheerfulness to it. So basically, yes and no. I kind of did look for specific styles, but I ended up getting a fairly broad range. I feel like they all go together. Like, they all look more or less right next to each other, I think. Because I didn't want it to be kind of too all over the place. I mean, if you look at the artists on the project page, you can see that there's a certain there's a certain unity, but there's also some variety. And let's see. Swarms of anything really are a common appearance in horror. That is true. You are right there. Swarms, just large amounts of tiny things, or even large amounts of big things. They're like one of those things like, I don't know, fangs or weird eyes. It's just something that creeps us out on a primal level, I think. Yeah, I remember, another fairly vivid, mental image I have from my childhood was, when I was very, very little, we had these flat, square stones outside my childhood home, and they were pretty sizable stones. And I was just this eensy little girl, and I could barely lift the corner of one up. And I just remember one time where I was trying to, just because it was hard, so I wanted to be able to say I could lift it up. And I managed to flip the whole thing over, and the entire underside was completely covered with ants. Like, it was just a... Maybe my memory is making it more ants than it was, but it seemed to me to be just a flat square of nothing but giant swarms of ants. And then there's that sort of added horror of realizing I was sticking my fingers under there this whole time and thinking that it was just like, dirt tickling my fingers, but no, it was just these swarms of ants. So, that was something. Thank you, Ian Thompson. I really should have. I should have. I should have realized that. Well, baby's second live stream. She's learning. So now I'm going to keep refreshing. Speaking of refreshing, why don't I take another look at this? It used to be. I don't know if this was just something that. Oh, and it looks like we have a change. Yes, we're getting there. We are getting there. So let's see. Well, unless anyone has any other suggestions for what to draw, I think I'll just draw what I was just talking about. The brick covered with ants that I spent so much time trying to lift up. And when I say it was a brick, it wasn't like a normal size brick. It was like, a big stone. It was like decorative, it was kind of almost a stepping stone in the grass. There we go. I think after this one I'll be fairly close to the end of my hour. So if anyone has anything they want me to draw, any questions they want me to answer, just anything at all, pop something in the comments. This time I'll actually see them. I think actually, next time I'm going to try and find a way to have a little bit of music. it may be that I'll just have to put up Spotify on my phone and play that near the microphone. But if I gotta do that, that's fine. As long as it sounds okay. I'll probably have to do a test with that, because I have no idea whether that would be audible or if it would just be all distorted and terrible. Okay, I may be exaggerating the amount of ants here, but there were a lot of ants, not quite this many. But yeah, that's a little bit of bonus horror that that's I don't know what you would call that, but it's a trope I see a lot in horror, especially in things like short scary stories like creepypasta, which I read a whole lot of, or to me what the precursor to creepypasta is, which a lot of creepypasta kind of follow the format of, when that is like those scary stories to tell in the dark books, or the thousands of very similar books that they had, where very short stories, a little formulaic, but there's a few different formulas, and a very common thing in them is you were touching something, or you were next to something, or you were doing something that you were completely unaware was horrifying until you later find out. Like an example of that I can think of right off the top of my head is a fairly classic scary story called some variation of Aren't You Glad You Didn't Turn On the Lights? And that story is, usually in college, there's someone who was going to a party or maybe going over to visit her boyfriend, and she decided she was going to spend the night, so she goes back to her dorm where her roommate is sleeping and goes to get her toothbrush and a couple other things. And, the dorm room is completely dark, and she can see her roommate kind of asleep in bed, so she doesn't want to wake her. So she tiptoes around, keeps the light turned off, and, gets her stuff, goes out, spends the rest of the night with her boyfriend. In the morning, she's going back to her dorm room when she sees police are all over the building. And she sees a body being zipped up. And just in the instant before its face is completely covered, she recognizes her roommate and is understandably horrified. And she talks to the police and says, that's my roommate, what's going on? And he says, there's been a murder, and it took place in that room. And either she pushes past the policeman, or later she sees crime scene photos, or some other situation. Sometimes there's no police. Sometimes she just walks in, and her roommate is dead in the bed, covered in blood. And written on the wall, in blood, is, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?" Stories like that where there's this kind of horror that only exists upon reflection. Kind of hindsight horror. Yeah, that's pretty creepy to me. That's something I really like. Oh, there's another comment. See, I'm refreshing. Comic for Then It Was Dark. Hey, what is Then It Was Dark? A collection of other people's traumatic encounters with things defying comprehension. Is it creepy to want something like that? Probably. Want in? Yeah! I like that. I am going to reblog that, in fact. That's pretty delightful. I think it's creepy to want and like most of the things I want and like, so I ain't gonna judge. It would be pretty ridiculous if I judged people for wanting an anthology that I put together. It's like, oh yeah, I've spent hours and hours thinking about this and working on this and trying to make it as creepy and wonderful as possible, but oh, you actually want to read it? That's freaky. Is it creepy? Yes. Yes, it is. Oh, screw that. Creepily. Reblog! Well, thank you. That was pretty delightful. Well, I think I would like to end on a high note. So, with that, I think maybe it's about time to bring this to a close. We're almost at the end of our hour anyway. I'd like to thank everyone who watched. I, of course, want to thank everyone who backed and who has signal boosted and shown this project to your friends and told others about it. You know, I could not be happier, and we could not do this without all of you. So I'm going to refresh one more time. Well, that's okay. I am so excited with where this project is now, and I'm going to say thank you once more. Oh, hold on. I think we got one more comment. Nope. Alright, then I shall say thank you and good night to you all.